Blah, blah. Okay, take two now that the microphone's actually on. Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, April 21st, 2017. Hopefully everything's going okay. I switched over to the latest OBS, and I'm hoping it's actually not having a problem. I don't know. We'll find out. Other than that, we're jumping right into the project today. Working on stuff that people may have asked questions for, trying to help them out as best as possible. If not, we're working on the MMO Slice project. After fighting with Socket.io for near 2 weeks at this point, I've come to the conclusion that it's just not going to give me the end results I want without frustrating me. So I spent yesterday switching over to VaRest for the majority of the project. I tried to get it all done this morning, but I didn't realize just how complicated my loot system was. So I'm in the middle of updating the loot system to have it work with VaRest, because that was the last section that was left. So Socket.io is out and VaRest is in. It means I've had to refactor some stuff, and we're hopefully going to finish that up here shortly. The negative to VaRest is it's a request and a return result, rather than an open connection to a socket and having open connection back and forth. So the old system would basically bind a connection with an ID, and as long as I kept track of the ID, I knew who I need to talk to and send information to. With VaRest, it's basically I send the information to the server sends it back when it's done, but it uses the same request for both. So for other stuff, it's not too much of an issue. It hasn't been an issue so far. I still need to actually figure out if it's going to be. But every the login helper that sends the data is unique to the client. The character that sends the data is unique to the character. The game mode, and this is where I realized that this may not have been the best place to put this, and I'm actually realizing that as I'm recoding this right now. The game mode is one item on the server that's only on the server. So the issue now is if the monster dies and it wants to give out loot to two different people, it's going to send two different requests. However, it's going to overwrite the first request with the second request when it's waiting for the return result. If we were using something unique to the character, like for example the player state or the game instance or something that's unique, it wouldn't be an issue. However, because I'm using the game mode, it is an issue. So I've been working on refactoring all of our stuff, and what we're doing is creating kind of like a queue inside of our game mode so that we'll handle loot. The monsters can notify the game mode that loot has to be given out and give it all the information. The game mode will process the loot as it comes in and will basically loop through itself continuously as it gets back the requests and go from there. That is our goal. I don't know if this is going to actually work or not. I've realized while I'm in the middle of this that switching over to a different system, not using the game mode, might be better. But if this does work, it at least shows us, and we can create kind of like a little queuing system, which would be kind of cool. So hello everybody. Yes, Metric, you are on time today, and hello everybody else. If anyone has any questions or need help with anything, you ask me as soon as you can, and we'll see what we can do to help. Other than that, I'm doing really annoying work right now because we're refactoring the whole system, which I'm not happy about, but it has to be done. Okay. So how this is set up now is when the monster, the loot code before used to be in the client, in the game mode, and then the monster would tell the game mode, hey, here's some people who attacked me and here's some loot I can give them, figure out what to give them. Now the loot code is in the monster, and the monster figures out when it dies what it should give to the people, and then tells the game mode that information. So I'm in the process of breaking that up right now. In theory, that's what I'm actually working on. I obviously don't have anything working, but that's what we're working on. VaRest does not support structure to JSON conversion. So we have to do a lot more behind the scenes work in order to make our objects that we have to give to our server. Before, we would just pass the entire structure and then the conversion would happen automatically. Now we have to create our structure, our object out of our structure. So that's what we're working on now, which is a lot of fun. Let's see. Can you make a tutorial of making an enemy to shoot at our character? Also, is it possible to drive a vehicle in an FPS game? Tutorial making an enemy shoot at our character. What do you mean exactly? I mean, a full tutorial showing it walking up to the character, aiming at them, firing with animations, all that? Or just a simple behavior tree that finds the character within a certain range and then fires at them? I mean, what type are we looking at? Because that's a very large thing. I would recommend, honestly, if you're looking for something like that, I would recommend going through this series of tutorials. This is a really good, this is a really good series I'd recommend going through. It shows you how to create a shooter game from scratch. It's shootertutorial.com. He starts from scratch and he goes through how to do a shooter tutorial. And it starts off and he does all the stuff. So if we go through the tutorials, and you'll see in here, configuring, adding, setting up the character, going through the different weapon sets up, setting up a first enemy with a behavior tree, shooting at the player. So here's one right here for aiming at the player and shooting at them, creating different weapons, creating different UI layouts, setting up an environment where the monsters come at you and you have them to attack. You have your higher end behavior tree. I would recommend going through this. This is a really good series of tutorials for what you're asking about, a shooter, making a enemy shoot at our character. And it was shootertutorial.com. It's a really good series. The second one, possible to drive a vehicle in an FPS game. It certainly is possible. And by default, there are two templates inside of the engine as it is now. We have the vehicle advanced and the regular vehicle. And both of these you can be doing first person. If you were to open up the template, so I'll open up right now. This is something that's kind of hidden away, but will work perfectly fine. Once it opens up. Okay, so by default, our vehicle is behind the camera that you can see here. If you actually go into our vehicle itself, though, so let's find where our vehicle's at. I think it's this one. Yeah. If you go into here, the default camera sets itself based on if you have a VR head-mounted display. If you have a head-mounted display enabled, it actually turns on an in-car view. So if we just check this by default, that was kind of weird. This is, oh yeah, that was it. Yeah, okay. So we check, you can see we now switch into a first-person view by default. You can actually drive the car. You can look around with your mouse. The car drives, and we are in a first-person view in our car. Well, obviously, we would want to adjust. You know, you'd have to work on your camera, and you'd have to work on, you know, animation for like your steering wheel and stuff like that. But by default, the vehicle templates come with an in-car view. So it's definitely possible to drive a vehicle in an FPS game if you want it in-car view like that. If not, the default template by default sets itself up like this. So you would just switch over to controlling your vehicle instead of the person, and you go from there. And those are really simple. That's what the possessed and unpossessed nodes are for. All you would do is have a character in the game. You could walk it up to the car. You could interact with the car, and then you would unpossess your player. Maybe hide him or destroy him or do something with him since you don't want to control the player in the world. And then you would possess the car, and then you would now allow you to drive the car. How would you handle going back and forth between levels like in Skyrim and Zelda? A hub level, you go back and forth between, might have 3 players starting locations for the paths. We did a basic series on this. Someone asked about a Resident Evil camera system. And Resident Evil's one's camera system basically allows you to go from area to area and come back and forth from the same points. If you're talking about setting up for hub level, we can do basically the same thing. So if we find here's our Resident Evil game level. Let's open up the first map. Let's see if I still have the game instance set up. Give me a second to check. Whoops. Yeah, I don't know if I do. I have to make sure I have the right game instance set up. Maps and modes, and then, yeah, Resident Evil game instance. Okay. So here is our default setup, right? Our player can come in. We have 3 different exits. So coincidentally, like your hub world, you have 3 different entrances and exits. This blueprint is set up so it keeps in track of where it's supposed to go to. So for example, going from this map to map 2, this map to map 3, and this map to map 4. It also keeps track of where the player is supposed to come out when they respawn. So if we look at our item, we have an arrow which indicates our spawn point, and this is where the player will spawn when they come back. And how it works is each door keeps track of itself as you go through it, and our game instance keeps track of where we came from. So for example, I need to turn I think I have a debug option in my door triggers, if I remember right. Let me find it. Or did I just okay, well, we'll put it right here. Raw debug. What do I call it? Collisions? Debug collisions. There we go. Okay, so here you can see we have our door. Our map, that goes to map 2, this goes to map 3, this goes to map 4. And when you walk into it, it loads you up into the next map where the respawn point is, or the spawning point. You notice in this case, it's way over here because I designed it like that. But when I go through this map, you'll see map 1. It's going to show me right at the exit to map 2, where I came from. In this case, like for example, map 4 will take me to map 4. And you can say go right back to map 1. Here's map 4. This says map 5. We go through here. Here's the exit for map 5, back to 4, and it's going to put me back right at the exit for that door. So you can use the game instance, which is persistent throughout everything, to store information. And then the way this blueprint is set up, it's simply when it starts, it checks to see if the door that's associated with it. So for example, you notice here, this is the door it's associated with, which map it's supposed to go into. If that's the correct door, so they're linked together basically, then it goes ahead and puts the player there when they spawn in. If it's not, it does nothing. It just ignores it because it's not the door you used. And then when we overlap, so when we're leaving, for example, it takes our current level, stores it into our game instance so we know where we came from, and then opens up the map we want to go to. So it's a super simple setup, but works effectively. And where it spawns, that's why if we went, for example, to, what was it, map 2 I have set up weird? Yeah, that's why you'll notice when we went into map 2, he didn't show up at the door, he showed up at the spawn point, which was just something I set up over here, this little spawn point. And that's dynamic enough, so for example, you could have them come in, you could make it where they come in anywhere you want, and you could have them rotate and face any way you want. So it allows complete flexibility. So that's an example of it. This was done on one of the videos. If you look through the archive, you can probably find it. This is the Resident Evil room movement or Resident Evil camera system setup. I can try to find it as well if you want, but it is in the archives for the live streams, and it shows how we went through the complete thing. But that's the simplest way of doing it, probably. Okay, so let's see if we can go back to... what tutorial series did you say this was? It was a live stream that I did for the Resident Evil camera system. Let's see if we can find it. Hopefully I was smart enough to name my stuff properly. Let's see. Yes, I know I'm live right now. Thank you for letting me know. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, here we go. February 24th, learning stuff. Basic room-to-room map transfers. Resident Evil boom setup. It's probably in here somewhere. Let's see, it looks like. Yep. So let me go ahead and paste this. And here's the entire live stream, which covers exactly what we did and covers the blueprints and everything. So hopefully that'll help. Okay. So let's go back to, here's our project. So I am very much aware that what we are doing here is probably the stupid way of doing this. I never quite understood why people don't use the game mode when they're using VaRest. Now I understand why. We're still going to do it, mainly because even if we don't end up using this in the final project, it'll at least let us hopefully learn how to make a little queuing system. Basically a system that keeps track of itself and continually queues things up. So that's what we're going to work on here. Now the way VaRest works is you create an object. You create a request object. And then, well, first of all, you create a request. The request holds everything. It holds the request itself, so what we're going to send, and it holds the response once the server sends it back to us. This is why we have the issue with overlapping, because if I send a request and I'm waiting for the response from the server, and then I go ahead and I send another request, I'm going to have mismatched stuff. It's going to break. It's not good. You basically have one object that handles the two things. You don't want to overwrite them. And then how it works is once you have your request object, you set fields. So for example, I would set a field with a number, a Boolean, a string, or another object. And that's how we send the data to the server. So the old way of doing it is we would send them a structure, which was right here. This is our actual old way. And that structure would hold all of our stuff. And then the server would grab it, pull the stuff out, and do whatever it needed to do. The new way is we can't do that, unfortunately. It just won't work like that because we don't have a unique event. So we just need to change some of this stuff around and see if we can fix it. And I'm just going to delete everything here. And I just realized I also screwed up. So we need to go back to our monster. Right here we were sending the loot, but we were never sending the coins. Right here. I never told them the coins to give to the player. So we need to fix that. Because coins are not counted as loot. So we need to treat that separately. Okay, so we fix that shortly. And this will be local new coins to give. There we go. That's the local new coins value. That's right. It's not coins to give. It's the new coins value. Okay, so that'll work fine. And then we'll have to, let's see, this is our loot to distribute array, and then we'll process pending loot, which is this right here, which is where this is where we create our loot request object. So we need to make sure that we are passing through all of the correct information when we create our loot request object. So we need to make sure that information is unique. So let's see, coins value. I have a feeling I'm going to be spending a bunch of time doing stuff that we're not even going to use. But I don't know. Should we? Let's see. Can you not send data to the server, then not allow another to be sent until the server responds? That is correct. 8-shot, that is exactly what we're going to be doing. But this is a case of where we have to actually structure it properly, because our monster dies. Our monster has, let's say, 3 people to give loot to. Somehow we need to keep track of those 3 people and the loot we're going to give it. And then we need to keep track of who's been sent and then clear that out of our loop, our list basically, and then send it to the next person, send to the next person. And the problem with that is, let's say you have 20 people playing and you have loot constantly being handed out. Without the queue and without the waiting, we're going to end up with an issue. Now that I think about this more and more, I have a feeling we're going to have to not do it this way. Crap. So how do we do this then? Do we just keep the monster alive long enough till it gives out all the loot? Can we move all this stuff to the monster? Would that be a smarter way of doing it, and have the monster basically send out the loot, wait for the response, go through the list, go to the next one? I wonder if we could do that. Let's see if we can do that. You know what? I'm going to nuke everything out of our game mode. Wait, hold on. I bit myself in the butt by doing that before. We're not going to nuke it out of the game mode. We're just going to not do anything in the game mode. Okay. Yeah, maybe we'll just keep it in the monster. Because technically the monster runs on the server and then the monster can hand out all of its loot. What if we did that? Let's see how we can make that work. So this is when, okay, so we're not going to have to call this on the destroyed. We're going to have to... This is a good question. Okay, this is actually something interesting to figure out. So we have a destroyed event. When our monster dies, basically when it runs out of life, we call a destroy actor event. The destroy actor event is where we are capturing our little monster was destroyed and determine loot drops. So basically the monster gets destroyed, the destroy event is firing off, and then we tell the spawner that the monster was destroyed so it can respawn another one, and then we determine the loot drops. Now before, those were all synchronous operations. They happened 1-1-1-1-1. We never really had any delay, so it wasn't too much of an issue to send them in order when the monster died. However, if we switch this over where the monster dies, gets destroyed, and then we start handing out loot in an asynchronous way where we are taking our time, and let's say it takes 5 seconds to give out loot, will this wait for it to get finished before it actually destroys and cleans up the monster in memory? Or will it kill it like half a second into our loot distribution and fail? I have a feeling it's going to be the second one. I have a feeling that this event destroyed, we shouldn't be doing anything that's asynchronous or latent, anything that takes time. So I think we need to restructure this a little bit. I think what we want to do is we're going to move our code out of our destroy actor here. No, we're going to keep we're going to keep our loot drops out of our destroy actor. All that we're going to do when the monster actually gets destroyed is tell our spawner it needs to respawn another one. So that's what we're going to do there. So this code right here, we're going to save until we're actually done giving out all of our loot. So we'll go and nuke that, and then we'll set up a new setup for giving out loot. So I called that right here. I called that determine loot drops, and I think we're going to change that. So what is the smartest way of doing this? We already have an aggro table, we now have a loot table. So if we loop through our aggro table, so if we go back, you know what? What's funny about all this? All of the code I changed earlier, if we go through our game base, all this code that I was changing earlier, where is it out? Yeah, all the code I created earlier, technically I could use again. I wish I hadn't destroyed all that code. Oh well, what are we going to do about it, right? Nothing we can do. So here's our determined loot drops. This still works perfectly fine. Yeah, okay. You know what? Local loot. Yeah, okay, you know what? We are good. Yep, we're good. Let's see. What if you make a condition something like, does monster have loot? If no, or if timer is above 30 seconds, then despawn. That's pretty much what we're going to be doing. Yeah. Our biggest thing is we need to make sure we create our loot, distribute our loot, and don't get rid of the character or the monster till all of its loot is gone. But I went ahead and I've updated this code, so we should be good here. So this is no longer our... Okay, cool. So we're good. Determine loot drops. We're going to make a... So what we need to do is we need a new custom event is what we need. Okay, custom event. This is going to be give loot to player. Okay. And what this is going to do is going to determine the loot drops right here, and we want an output is what we want. So determine loot drops, and where's my determine loot drops? Here we go. Output, bloop, and bloop. Let's find out where they put that return node at. There it is. Right here. And it's going to be we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to return out, and we're going to give it the local loot. This is kind of cool. If you never know about this, if you just simply drag a variable onto a node, an input or an output node, you can have it. So I'll nuke this. Let me disconnect this and show it again. So like here's our return node. You can drop things onto it, and it'll automatically create the output pins or the input pins. So there we go. So this function is going to create the loot. It's going to determine which loot we want to create. We have a few things in here. Let's see. So we don't actually want to fire this off. We are just going to grab our first person is what we're going to do. Okay, there we go. And then, let's see, local loot to give to player, local new coins value. We don't even need any of this because all we're doing here is determining loot drops. I'm kind of trying to refactor this. We still have another error, yeah, because we don't have that. So if cast failed, we are going to, I guess, return nothing. Technically, we want to abort. We don't want to return nothing, but that's not going to work, right? There we go. Okay. And let me rename these. I don't need the word local in the output anymore. And we don't need, let's see, new coins and loot gift. There we go. We'll go with that. Okay. So when we call give loot to player, so what's going to happen? I actually need to change that to give loot. Yeah, just give loot to player. We'll call it once. Okay. So it's going to run through here. It's going to grab the aggro table. Tell it to turn off auto attack. Tell it to notify listeners of death. Yep, and then we're going to give loot to player. Technically, this should be give loot to players. So let's rename that. So this will cycle through. This is our command that's going to give loot to players is what it's going to do. And what we'll do here is the first thing we'll do is we need to get our current aggro table. Let's see if we even have anyone to give loot to. So let's make sure that the length is greater than 0. Because if we don't have anybody to give loot to, then we don't need to run this. We're done. We ran out of stuff to give to. So that's going to be our destroy case. So is it greater than 0? Do we have anyone on our aggro table? If true, we need to give them loot. If not, we're going to destroy ourselves. So this is where we determine if we're done giving out loot. So if we do need to give out loot, then we are going to determine the loot drops. So figure out the loot drops for this random session. That's going to figure out our coins and our items. After that, we need to actually give it to someone. So this is where we're going to bind our event and we're going to create it and we're going to send it in. So if we go back to our game mode and we find the graph for creating, where did I put it? Here we go, right here. This is what we care about right here. We'll copy this out. We'll paste this in here. This is going to be our request. So this is the request that we're going to set. And then this is going to be the request object. So let's create it and rename it. There we go. And yeah, seems kind of weird with the way VaRest works, but if you think of it as this is the actual entire conversation back and forth, and this is the actual your part of the conversation, then it makes a little more sense. So you have to have two things to make it work. This is the entire thing, and this is just what we're going to say when we talk. And we need to send in two things, our loot to give player and our new coins. Now, this one's not a problem. It's an integer. This one's a problem because it's a structure. We can't just make a structure into what we want. So we're going to have to figure out how to turn it into something. JSON. JSON is JavaScript object notation. It's basically, well, if we look at what it is physically, this is an example of JSON, but it would be nicer if there was a much better. This is JSON. Basically, it's a key and a value, a key and a value, a key and a value. So, like in this case, name John, age 31, city New York. That's basically the way that JavaScript works for sending and saving data. The nice part about JSON is it can be here we go. Nested. That's what I was trying to go with. So right here, for example, you see we have an object. So this is a JSON object. And then inside of that, we have another object called glossary that has this item inside of it. This is where it gets really freaking complicated, which has another item in it, which is called title with the name example glossary. And then under that, it has another item inside of it. It's probably going to be this set right here, which is called gloss div, which has an object inside of it. And it's a way of sending data with references, basically, is what JavaScript is. So in our case, if we were to open up our code, which is right here, and look at our user, this is the object, for our user. It has a name, it has a password, an ID, when it was created, when it was updated. Inside of that, it has an object called character, which holds the character's name and level and experience. So you could think of it as classes in a traditional programming language, but it's a format for making it standardized inside of JavaScript. So what we're going to do is we're going to create one that has our session ID, so we know which player we're going to do this to, and then it's going to tell them how many coins and how much loot they should have. That's what we're going to try to do here. So here's our request object, and we are going to set field. We're going to set a string field. And we're going to call this our session ID, and then we're going to put in the character's ID. So we need to find our character. So this is right here. So we're going to grab our, not that, we want to get. So we're going to grab the first character, and then we're going to cast him to an MMO character. And we should only ever give out loot to MMO characters. So let's just, it should only work. This shouldn't fail, I hope. We'll find out, won't we? We'll grab his session ID and we'll store it inside of our object. So this should allow us to know which character we're talking to when we talk to the server. And don't feel so bad. I'm a coder, but JavaScript itself and JavaScript object notation always drive me banana nuts because of the way JavaScript works. I'm literally just winging this and figuring it out as we go along. But this should basically take our object and say, okay, our first thing we're going to store in our object is our session ID. Then we're going to do here's our request object. So we're going to grab our request object and we're going to set a number field. And inside of our number field, we are going to store our, where'd it go? Did I lose it? Oh, I passed it along, didn't I? Wait, where'd it go? Oh, right here, new coins. That's what I was trying to do. We're going to store our new coins, which would be right here. That was a weird way it put that. Now, there's nothing stopping us, for example, from cleaning this up. All of this code that I'm going to do right here, we could put into another function to clean it up. But for now, we're just going to keep it out here for testing purposes. Now, here's where the problem comes in. We need to, and this is where the annoying part comes in compared to our older version with the socket.io. We grab our request object and we're going to set an object field. So this is basically setting a structure, another JavaScript object is what it is. And we need to fill it up with stuff. And that's going to be right here. And this is where my the slight difficulty comes in for remembering how to do this. So bear with me. Make object. Oh, create object. I always forget the name of this one. Construct object. Construct JSON object. There we go. I knew it was in here somewhere. I just couldn't remember what it was called. Promote this to a variable. This is going to seem really weird for anybody who's not used to this, and it's really weird for me too, but this is the way it works. We have to create, the old way is we took the actual structure and converted it over to an object, and it did all the stuff for us, and then we gave it over to our server. In this one, we have to create that object ourselves. We can't do it, unfortunately. We can't have this do it. So we have to do it ourselves, which is super annoying. But there's nothing we can do about that. So we need to for each, and then yeah. No, we need to make. Oh crap! We need to make an array, right? Oh, this one. So this one's going to be hard for me to remember how to do this. I guess we're passing two arrays. Bear with me while I try to figure this one out. Let's see. Set array, object array, number array. Crap. Okay, give me a second. Because we're basically want to pass this array in. Okay, so this is an array of integers. Okay, so we're going to do this. We're going to do arrays. We're not going to do it the other way. Okay, so we're going to do, this is what we're going to do. Set number array field. And then this is going to be the, what did we want to call this stuff? Let me reroute this. This project is going to be a giant fun box to clean up once we're done here. Okay, so this is going to be the loot ID. And we're going to fill this in. It'll have to truncate, which is, oh no. Oh, really? Crud. So we're going to have to change this over to a float value, because JavaScript only understands numbers, which are technically floats. They're not integers. They have decimal precision. So we're going to have to change our structure. Oh, great. Oh, well. Not a big deal. This is going to break a bunch of stuff, but it's not a big deal. Okay, but now we should be able to actually do this, which is what I wanted to do. And no, I'm not happy with the way my layout is running right now. This is probably one of the reasons I'll switch this over to a function at some point so I can change these into local variables. Okay, cool. And then this should be broken because of the fact that our local, all of this stuff is, we need to change these over to floats. Yeah, that's what we need to do. Okay. And then we're going to transfer in that, and it's going to convert it, and then our quantity is going to convert to that. There we go. That should at least fix that temporarily. This will fix this temporarily. Let's see. I made an enemy using the third-person character. Now, when I change that enemy to Infinite Warrior, it just slides in a weird way. How to fix it? NanoPen brings up a good point. Does it have an animation blueprint? First question I would ask is, how did you change it to the Infinite Warrior? Did you just change the model? Or what did you actually do? And it does sound like what NanoPen is mentioning, you don't have an animation blueprint for that skeletal mesh. Okay, so this should be it. Oops, I did not set this properly. This is coins to give. Okay. So if I did this right, we should have a session ID. We should have the number of coins to give. We should have two arrays of loot that we can loop over. This I haven't even done on the server yet. But we have a loot ID array and a quantity array. So I think we're going to be okay with this. So let's go back to our login screen. I keep forgetting how to do this. So I keep having to go back here to grab the code. Here's the code that we have now, where we are creating our request object. This is the code we need to finish it. So we'll do this. We'll put it over here. like this, and then we will save and compile. We should have, yep, one error. We're good there. On the server, it's called character receive loot. So we need to make sure we update this to character receive loot. And we're going to send our request, so we're good there. We need to update this in a second, and we need to rename this. So our function is called give loot to players. Our complete event, when this is done, is called give loot to players complete. If it happens to fail, it's called give loot to players fail. And then we actually need an event to call when we're done. So we need give loot to players return is what we need. So we need a new function, give loot to players return. So this is what we get called when we're done. Go back to our login helper, steal this code because copying is good, paste it in here. And when we get the information back from our server, it's going to tell us whether or not we were able to successfully save it or not. The loot. So let me do this. Oop, 400 success, 200 success. That's not what we wanted. There we go. So now we have this stubbed out. So let's go back to chat. Let's see. How do you make the animation blueprint? Change the scale. Okay, so here is our... let's load up Playground and let's see if we can show you something. I think I only have one character in here, so that's not going to work, is it? Yeah. You need to look into animation blueprints. The Infinite Warrior that you're using, where did you get it from? That's important to know. I'm pretty sure I don't have more than one. Yeah, see, I don't have more than one character in here. This is going to work. Oh, crud. I don't think I have any other example projects where I could easily pull in. Well, I mean, technically, where is the... Where's my Infinity Blade assets? They're in here somewhere, right? There we go. I can technically show you something. But yeah, the first thing here, Tom, is where did you get your Infinite Warrior from? Does it come with animations? That's the biggest thing. So here is a character that comes for free, the Poison Troll. I'm just going to migrate him out, and I'm going to pull him into one of our other projects here. If I can figure out where it's at. UE4. You know, I'll just throw him in the playground because it'd probably help to have another character in the playground, huh? Let me make sure this is my current one. Yep, okay, cool. Okay, cool. So if we go, now I can go back to my playground and I should have another character. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so we'll go back into my content, make a new folder, character anim swap, we'll try that. Let's see, so let's say you had your third person character. So we'll go into our third person blueprint. Here's our third person character. And we'll find that folder. So what do I call it? And let's say you were going to use him as your base model. So here's our little dude right here, and here's our default model. So we'll call it anim swap character, which is all fine and dandy. So make a new blueprint cast. I gotta do a game mode just so we can test this. Load up that one. Class defaults to our character. Oh, what I call anim swap character. There we go. Okay. And then this is going to be the game mode we're going to use on our world, which is called GM. It would help if I name these things properly. Oops, didn't want. Yeah, let's save the map anyways while we're here. Here anim swap map. Okay. So here's our map. Here's our characters. We have that one guy in there just because I didn't do anything. But if we look, we are using our new character. So let's say we want to change out the mesh on him. So your traditional first thought process, let me get rid of all the extra crap first, is you're going to want to change the mesh. So yeah, not a problem. We'll change out his mesh. Here's the troll mesh that I grabbed from our example project. So we'll go ahead and hit play, and you'll notice, well, he's not doing anything. He has no animations assigned to him. So yeah, he's going to slide across the floor. You need to give him animations. Now the biggest key is a couple things. He either needs animations brought in for him, or he needs to have a skeletal setup that is compatible with the Unreal Engine skeletal setup. If he has the second one, which everything on the marketplace is supposed to be, then you can use the skeleton and the animations from our default third-person character. If you don't, then you have to do some extra work to try to get them to match or make your own skeleton that matches. Or, traditionally, if you get a character from somewhere, it's going to have its own animations that you would assign. If it has its own animations that you would assign, then what matters is in your character, if we find our character, he has his animation mode and the anim class. This is basically where his animations are going to come from for the most part. This is your default setup. So if we look at our third person and we grab him, you'll notice he's using the anim class, third person anim BP. This is what determines his motion. If we were to, for example, zoom in, you can see him standing there and idling. If we were to change this, you'll notice he can no longer idle. He has no movements assigned to him. He doesn't know what to do for animation. And if we turn it back on, you'll notice he goes back. Now the blueprint itself, and this is something that's a little bit out of my pay grade. I'm not good with the anim blueprints. This comes with it, and it's the anim blueprint. And the anim blueprint is basically the controller for animations. You have all your animations here. You have jumping, idling, ending jump, looping, starting, running, and walking. And that's cool. This is just individual animations. The blueprint, the anim blueprint, determines what happens when. So it grabs the speed of your character, it grabs the angle of your character, it grabs if you're jumping, if you're falling, and then determines the appropriate animation to play. So like, for example, if he's in the air, he plays the air animation. If he starts running faster, he'll eventually start walking and then running. You have things such as the rotation of the character if he needs to rotate his head, if these were set up properly, and stuff like that. So one of the biggest questions here is what Tom says: how did you get your character and where did it come from? That's our biggest thing. If we take our troll here and we tell it to use our third-person blueprint, we're going to notice, well, it's not really going to work because he's not designed to work with the third-person blueprint. He can work with the skeleton setup if I have the appropriate animations, which I didn't bring in. And technically, we could kind of move the animations over if you know how to do retargeting, which is super complicated and annoying. So like 8shot recommended, there's a really good tutorial on the official YouTube channel for animation blueprints. That's a great place to start. What you're looking for is either, do you have the animations that go along with your character? Or do you have a compatible skeleton with the official Unreal Engine system? And that will determine if you need to retarget or just swap out the animations. Let's see, 8shot cannot search, but I can. So let's see if we can find what he wants to post. So UE4 animation blueprint should be the 5th one down. Let's see, Jay, Douglas. Well, I have a couple of them. None of these are the official ones. The ones that are popping up here. But let's see, I know Jay does good work. Let's see what his is. Yeah, he's got a decent system on setting things up. Yeah, so if you just Google, like he's mentioning, UE4 animation blueprints, there's a ton of people who've done this setup. Oh, ha! I typed in mine auto-completed tutorial is what happened. Oh, that's funny. That's why I ended up with a different result than you. Mine auto-completed. Because apparently I've been looking for blueprint animation tutorials in the past. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, the 4.8, the intro to animation blueprints. Yeah, I'm trying to find that one. Apparently, my Google doesn't like me learning from Unreal Engine themselves. That is so funny. I literally can't get Unreal. Oh, there we go. Found it. Finally. Okay. This is the tutorial he's referring to. It was on the second page for me. Apparently Google and YouTube don't like me actually using Unreal stuff, which is highly amusing. Okay, so hopefully that helps him out. Let's see if we can get some stuff here. I think we're in the testing phase right now for this setup. I believe we are, because from what I can tell here, if we've done this right, let me close some other things. When our player takes enough damage, we'll give loot to players. This should grab see if we have an aggro table. If we do, it's going to do something. If we have no aggro table, it should destroy it. If we do, it's going to create our request. It's going to fill it in with our ID, our coins to give, our loot ID array, and our quantity array. Then it should bind to event handlers, one for if we fail and one if we complete. And then it should actually tell our server to do that. And I realized that I should probably hook up the return. Now, if it finishes successfully, it'll go here, and then we're going to get this to pop out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the server, and I'm going to just do a simple console log so we can test and see if this worked. And I'm just going to log out what I sent, so hopefully it worked. We obviously don't know if it did or not, but we'll find out. And then I'll send back a status of 200 to show that it was fine. I also need to do return. That is why that's not working either. I just realized that. I'm supposed to be returning the restore status, and I'm not earlier. That's funny. Okay. So if this is right, then we will print string. And this should only be on the... server. So we'll see what happens. I literally don't know if this is going to work. That's the point of testing. And that's the interesting part of doing this stuff live. So our server's good. Let me build this out, and it'll build out the dedicated server. Let's see. How is the dev going? The dev is going horribly, horribly wrong. We've had to switch from Socket.io over to VaRest, which meant I had to rewrite some of the code, which hasn't been a big deal, except some of the stuff I was doing before I can no longer do. So now we're trying to get our loot system back in place. In theory, the loot system is the only system I have not converted over. So if this gets working. Oh, and I also have this. I had this start the other day. I'm starting to get transient errors, which makes no sense to me. Yeah, that shouldn't be happening, but of course it is. Because why not? That's basically how this process has been going. Because why not? Okay. Now I should have a new test character I created. There we go. And we're in good. Everything's loading up properly on the server. We can attack. What counts is if it dies, if we get the information on the server, which we did. Cool. So here's the server. Here's the response on the server. Well, here's when we logged in right here. So this is our login information from the server. This is the request I just sent. Character receive loot. You can see here's our ID for our character. We're supposed to give him 10 coins, no loot, and no quantity. And then the server received back a response of 200, which is a success. So actually all the stuff we just did worked perfectly fine first try. Yep. It's not going to work on here because we're not actually giving it to our player. So you notice he still has 0 coins. But the point is our server. So here's our server code, which we did right here. Our server actually received all the information we wanted. So now I can actually do the rest of this stuff in here. So, and now that we know the layout, because we know that we want our session ID, our coins to give, and we have 2 arrays, we can do this. So we'll go back in here. Let's finish up our error codes. So let me just finish this. So we're going to return back a 500. There's an error. Character receive loot. And then if we div have a valid user, we are going to update our user with their coins. Remember, right now we still have no loot. We're just doing this with our coins for testing purposes. And this will be our request, the body of the request, and then our coins to give, which technically should be called new coins value. So I'm going to change that. We're going to go back to the engine. We're going to go back to here. And right here, we don't need to do that. And we were going to call this new coins value, because that's technically what it is. Because if we remember originally, which I think is still broken, by the way. A lot of stuff got broken when I had to switch some things. That's literally the theme of the day. A lot of stuff broke. Let's see if we can figure out what broke. Here we go. I think this is, yeah. This is broken because I'm not actually getting the player's current stats. So that's kind of pointless. Crap. We need to fudge. Never mind. You know what? I'm just gonna give it we're just gonna go with what we have here. Yeah, you know what? We're gonna do the math on the server side. That's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna recorrect what I said there, and we're just gonna do this. This is gonna be coins to give. We'll turn this back to coins to give. There we go. Yeah, you know what? Screw it. We'll have the server do the math just to be safe. It seems like it's a little bit smarter in the first place. Okay. So this is our character, and there's this coins value. And then it's going to be equal to the... can we do plus equal in JavaScript? I don't know. I guess we're going to find out. And then what do we call it? Coins to give. I got to make sure this is named properly. Coins to give. There we go. Okay. So that should save it, and then this should go ahead, and all this code worked before. We just need to update our errors. And that's what these are right here. So let's see. So this one is, oh, see, that's error. We're going to send an error 400 is what we're going to do. This will be, there was an error saving to the database. No, it's not a 400. It's going to be a 500. We're trying to use the because these are HTTP headers is what we're doing. So we're trying to use the standardized format for that, which is 200 success, 400 bad or fail, and then 500 server error. So if we have a server error, I want to make sure I send back 500. And if I have a client error, for example, they tried to log in with a bad name or password, we're going to want to make sure we send back a 400. There we go. Okay, cool. So we're good here. This is not good right now. Need to update with inventory when done. But for now, since we're only testing with coins, we can leave it as is. So we're going to return back, when we're done, the new values that the character has. And then we're going to take that, we're going to update the local values, and then we're going to be done. So we get back our user character, so we should be good there. This one is another error. So this one is, let's see. Did we find a valid user? So what would we return back? That's a hard error. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. Okay, I think we're good. If this code works, I don't know if plus equal works in JavaScript. We're good. If it's not, then we're not good. We'll find out here shortly. So we're going to go ahead and move the server back to the other screen. We are going to kill the dedicated server. Is what we're going to do. We are going to go back into here, and we're going to have to now check our return. Let me check the chat, and then we'll go back to that. So, how do you make a camera switch transition into a hiding spot? You can change the camera using the blend view target node. I do have a video on that. Let's see if I come up. Yeah, here we go. So how do I change cameras on Unreal Engine 4? So this is actually my video. And that will show you how to change the camera. And you basically just have to put in 2 different cameras. And if you follow the tutorial, hopefully it'll help. If that doesn't help you, Darkcraft, give me a little more information on the problem. For example, what you're trying to accomplish, we'll see if I can give you a little more information. 8shot, I've been doing code for near 30 years at this point, and I started with old man code is what I call it. So technically, I don't really know what it's doing. I'm just guessing most of the time. I know enough of it to figure it out. It's still Greek to me, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. Okay, so this right here is... Oh, shoot. So you know what? We got a small problem. How do we fix this now? How do you make a transition with it, like him move down into it? Okay, so his question is, how do you make a camera switch transition into a hiding spot? So, like the camera moves down when the player moves down? You could just have the camera physically copy the movement of the player, if that's what we're trying to do. So, like when your player ducks or crouches or moves, just feed that delta change, basically how much it changed between the last frame and the current frame for the player. Have the camera move, but you're going to end up fighting the player's camera if the player has control over it. So I don't know if you'd want to do that. Unless you take it away, move it manually, and then give it back when you're done. I don't know exactly what you're trying to accomplish, so it does make it a little bit hard to guess. In terms of the problem we have here with this project, the loot is given out inside the monster. However, I have an answer. Wait, no, I don't have an answer. Crap. Oh, crap. Okay, crap. Crappity crap. Okay, so here's our problem. Player kills monster. Monster dies. Monster gives loot to player. But it doesn't give it to the player. It gives it to the server. Because we don't want to give it to the player until the server has confirmed it. Now that the server has confirmed it, how do we give that back to the player as efficiently as possible? That's my question here. We'd want to previously we would get the characters' values from the server and update them. Technically, we could still do that. I guess the only thing I could think of is have the monster, once it's done, once it was successful, tell the player to update its stats or update its inventory, and then have the player grab the updated information. It kind of seems like a waste of bandwidth, but if anyone can think of a safer way of doing this, I'd love to hear about it. The other way I could think of is when the monster updates itself, because the monster, gives out the loot. Yeah. And JoviX is tossing out some chat, so that's helpful. I wouldn't depend on the monster. Well, that doesn't help. Let's see. Do you recall which live stream upload you started the monster's inventory? I don't, but I've been pretty good at naming the streams. So if you go back, and you can probably find it in the header. It's okay. The monster should just pass its data to the server, which it does. The server says okay, which it does. And the server distributes from the master server. The server distributes it from the master server that... The monster should just pass his data to the server. Okay, the monster does that. The server says okay, which is this code right here. So we're good there. The server distributes it from the master system that distributes loot. The problem is, JoviX, that I'm encountering right now. My character has 0 coins. It kills the monster. The monster gives those coins to the player. Now, how do I notify the player that they have received coins? and the exact, or in this case, coins. I can't use the server to send it to the player because my server doesn't have direct communication with the player using VaRest. I'd have to tell the player to, yeah, see, I don't have that. Yeah, I'm not using Socket.io anymore, or else I wouldn't have this issue. I'm using VaRest now. Yeah. But my thought was that what you're basically saying right there is at this point in time, I do have a list of who I was last talking to. I can just, once you receive it back, tell that player they received loot. I can have this do it, and then have the player ask for the updated information. I just didn't know if that would be a waste, but it seems like the safest way of doing it, rather than relying on a non-validation. Because we could set up non-validation, whereas in the monster gives the player the loot, and it doesn't validate that the server is correct, but then you end up with an issue where you could have an out-of-sync issue, and I don't think we want to do that. Okay, I think we'll do that. Okay. Comes back. We are going to receive back the new character. So we don't actually need that. What we need is... we need nothing. We need either success or failure. We're actually not going to do anything. So we can go back to our server. I'm just going to keep it off screen. And all the server is going to send back is an okie dokie message. So the server is going to basically go, yes, we've successfully saved the loot to the server for this character. So once it's success, we can go ahead and grab our aggro table. We know we're working with the first person throughout all of this. If I wanted to be safer, I could store this in another variable, but since we're never altering this table at all, right now, we should be fine. So we'll grab our first person, and this is going to be our first actor. We'll cast it to an MMO character, and we'll tell it, hey, your loot has changed. So then it will send a request to the server and update itself. And I've already got that in place, so this shouldn't be an issue. I wanted to verify before I did it that we should do it like this. So we'll make a new event on the character, so that way the character can handle whatever happens. Because eventually we want to split this out. Right now, my loot event is coins and my loot event is loot. And it seems smarter to me to separate that into loot and items. Simply because if you kill something that only has loot... Simply because if you kill something that only has coins, and we only refresh the coins value, we end up saving bandwidth by not having to refresh the inventory or anything else. It saves us bandwidth, which is important in a networked game. No point in refreshing the entire character if we're only updating one part of the character. So it makes sense to me to do it that way. So, yeah, so loot was successful. So, we'll just do received loot. Yeah, we'll just call it received loot. Why not? We'll call it simple enough, received loot. And we'll actually go ahead and think a little bit ahead. We'll do coins only. And we'll set that as a Boolean. So we can check and see if it's coins only and then talk to the server properly. So in this one, received loot, and we'll go with that. Now I have no way of knowing if it was coins only unless we check. How do we know if this was coins only? What's the easiest way of doing that? Unless I pass it along and keep it, or I just store it temporarily. Let's see. Let me finish this up, Tom, and then I will get back to you about your fire effect. It shouldn't be too hard. We basically would put like a socket on the player and attach a particle to the socket. You do have to do some things such as if the particle's in world space or local space, but maybe we can fake something really quickly and figure it out. So what is the easiest way to do this? Okay, so this is going to be... I'm trying to backtrack right now. So this is where we determine our loot drops. This is where we go over here and we create stuff. Oh, I know the easiest way to put this. Duh. The return event can say if it is true or false on coins only. Duh. Duh, 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 duh. So right now we're going to just simply set a new variable at the top. and we'll set that to true, and then we'll invalidate that if we actually have any loot. So by default, it'll be true. Okay, that'll work. That's probably the simplest way of doing this. Okay, so then in our return event, which is here, nope, yeah, right here, give players return, our request. So if we grab our request and we get the response content, this will give us back a true or false. Actually, we don't want that. We want, let's see, we want the response object, and then get field. I'm not returning back a field. I'm just returning back a variable. Yeah, okay, yeah, you know. Why not? Let's see if we can figure this out. Make it super simple. Response content. I have no idea what this is. Let's find out. Let's see how it comes back, shall we? Because testing is fun. Let's kill the server. Already killed. I'm pretty sure it's going to return back a... I don't know what it's going to return back. Let's see. JoviX. Attach a particle emitter to a ball. Put a ball in the hand. Hide the ball. Bonus points. Oh, yeah. That's a good point. You could make the particle emitter go... You can always make the particle emitter look like a ball, too. Yeah, that'd be cool. Like a sphere. You could have it on the sphere. I'm not good at particles, by the way. So who knows what's going to happen. Let's see. Use the hands as the emitter, which you could technically do. Or use a stand-in mesh as the emitter, i.e. cut off a set of hands. That's probably the... more efficient way of doing it, I would say. Use a stand-in mesh for the hands, because I don't know if you can restrict it. We'll see if we can make something really stupid and silly looking and go from there. Okay, so let's log in. We're going to go ahead and kill ourselves a Wolfie, and we're going to see what our server says when it finishes. That's our loot. Response 500. We broke something. Okay. So apparently our response was we broke something. It was not happy with this at all. And here's our header. It's an error. Let's see. End date. Oh, man. Did I? Oh, man. Okay. I think I forgot to copy something from our server. Let's see. Okay, so it's telling me that in data is not defined on the user controller. Yeah, which event? Oh, yeah, this is the error code from my the node server, which I just realized I could read by looking at the node server itself. So that was stupid. 261. Oh, I'm a dum-dum. I never actually finished putting our code in here for searching for a character. Yeah, that was smart. The good thing is it's just a node crash, so we can easily... we don't have to recompile the server. There we go. Okay, now I had a hard crash. Ooh. Let's see. We had a hard crash. Is coins only is not defined. Seriously? Oh, because someone was smart enough to put a capital I instead of a lowercase I. Okay, so trial number 3. Let's try the last mob since we've only got one left. All right, there we go. Okay, cool. And our result was true. I don't actually know if that's what that is, but I guess we'll find out. Okay, so our result was true. So what we're going to do is, it's a string. Can we stop this? And how do we convert a string into a Boolean? Can we convert a string into a Boolean? Man, I don't... I don't want to package it. Oh, lordy. Okay, let's try this another way. So what we're going to do is we're going to send back a JSON object. And let's see, it is coins only, and we're going to send back is coins only. There we go. Okay. So that should send back a JSON object with is coins only as the key and is coins only as the true or false. So we're going to get back a true or false Boolean on this one. I didn't want to do that, but I think I'm going to have to do that. So in theory, now we don't get the response content, we get the response object. So this will give us our actual JSON object. Let's make sure it's as good before we do anything. So what do we want? We're on a success, right? So this will give us back our JSON object like this. I should probably move some things out of the way. Here we go. And then we can grab the field out of there as a Boolean. So for example, we can get a Boolean field. And this will give us back a true or a false, like that. And then the Boolean field name is coins only. So if I know my VaRest correctly, which there's a 12% chance I do, and I'm doing this correctly, this will work properly. And it'll tell our character that it received loot. And this is all running on the server, which is what we want, because we want the server to update everything and it'll replicate everything. So let's print string, and let's see if this worked. Did we work? And append, just because I want to actually check my true or false. So receive loot. And then we're going to go true or false. And this will call itself no matter. Okay. So let's see. We'll kill our server. We will build out our server. Let's see. Any particular reason to use JSON response to give loot instead of Unreal RPC calls? I'm using a dedicated server. So if I used an Unreal RPC call, then I can't actually store it anywhere. My JSON is what I'm using to send it from the Unreal server to the Mongo database server. So the RPC calls are great, except it doesn't help me actually save anything. Unless there's something I'm missing and I can somehow write out to my database server directly from Unreal, which, you know, of course would have skipped all of this crud that I've been having to deal with. But as far as I know, you can't. Technically, unless you use like an SQL plugin, but then you skip the dedicated server, and we just then cats and dogs are on fire. Okay, so let's try this again. We'll go ahead and kill this monster, and if we're lucky, it will not crash. Now it did crash, so we need to figure out what crashed. Let's see. We crashed our server. How is this coins only not defined? How have I managed to fail this one multiple times? Because I capitalized it again. Seriously, how did I do that more than once? Okay, let's try again. We have 3 chances. We only have 3 wolves. Okay. Okay, cool. So here was our server information. Our character on the server said it received loot with true for the value. So if we go to our server in here, we're going to change this to false. Obviously, we want to make sure this works, because if we don't make sure this works, it's going to bite me in the butt later. We'll go ahead and kill this. And if we did it right, aha, we got our false Boolean. So, yes, cool. Our variables worked properly. This stuff all works properly. We're good to go. Our server itself, we shouldn't have to do anything with at this point in time. We should be done with that. Let's kill our dedicated server. Let's finish up our character, because now we know it did receive loot. So what we should be able to do is, I'll do this later, but for now, we should be able to get the character values from the server. And this is just something I've set up already, and this should automatically grab all of our character values. Let's see. Just curious about the way you're building. If you have, feel free, honestly, throw out any ideas, questions, or suggestions on what we're doing. I've already had to redo things multiple times because we're learning, so I've got no issues with that on what we're doing. But yeah, for that actual question, I have to use VaRest to communicate between our dedicated Unreal server and the dedicated database server. And you have to use JSON when you're using VaRest, because that's the way VaRest works. Because bacon. Okay, so this right here, this is our actual event to grab all of our data from the server. This should, in theory, work properly. I did notice that for some reason our monster wasn't dying when we killed it, so we need to fix that. I have a feeling I know why, because we never told it to get rid of it properly. So here is our event, give loot to players. Here is checking to see if we have anyone to give loot to. Once we run out of things to give loot to, we destroy our actor. When we are done here, we tell the player to update. So what we want to do when we're done here is we basically loot back on ourselves. So give loot to players is what we want to call. We have successfully given loot to a player, saved it on the server. The server's told us it's been saved. We have taken that information, told our player to update itself because he has new loot. And now that that player's done, we should be able to go back to give loot to players. Now the issue we're going to run into here, hopefully someone noticed, is I never actually removed our player from the table after we gave them loot. We should probably do that. So we're going to want to grab our aggro table, and we're going to remove index 0. We're going to remove the person we just gave loot to. And we're going to fight with this friggin' node that won't center itself on the line because it doesn't like me. Yes, I know I can straighten connections, but that ends up screwing up everybody else behind it, because why not? Sure, why not? That's close enough. Yeah, why not? You know what? There's no reason our nodes need to be straight. They could just be like that. Okay. Let's build out our server. If we did this right, we should be good. Unreal Engine 5 ADD edition. Yeah, I spent like 2 hours going through the code for the lining up stuff. So the code that fires off this right here, when you right click and you do the alignment, the straight connections, trying to figure out how they have it set up to determine how it determines it. And it's just super annoying. I gave up. I did, because I would love for this to be straight with everything else, but then I have to go backwards multiple times. I mean, I guess technically I could do this. But then look, seriously, look at this one. Why did it decide to do that? Everything else got straightened except for this one who decided not to straighten itself. And then if I tell it, okay, straighten yourself on here, well, that sure as heck didn't do anything. Look, now all of a sudden, now it's not straightening at all because it's already auto-straightened. Yep, no, we give up. No, it's straight enough. That's what we're going to say. Okay, that built out. Let's go ahead and go back into here. Let's fire this off one last time and hope we're actually good to go. Okay, we have no coins. Oh, we have 50 coins. Oh, because I've been saving them on the server. So yeah, technically we do have 50 coins. Let's kill the monster. Hopefully the monster disappears. Good, the monster disappeared. Let's check our coins. We have 60 coins. So we've managed to successfully get back to where we were. Monsters die. Monsters give out loot. Loot is updated. We can check the server logs. So this is our dedicated server. You can see that it's getting the loot. It's saying, hey, give them 10 coins to this person. It's saying, yes, we received only coins. Our client is saying, yep, we received that back. We're good to go. Hey, I received loot. Let's go ahead and update ourselves. It's asking the server to update it, and the server's giving it back the new values, and the new values have the new coins. So we're good. We actually have managed to literally get back to where we were at the beginning of the week, except now everyone cross their fingers here. If this is working properly, yep, I still don't have my stage collections folder. We should be able to have 2 different people log in without crashing, which has kind of been the entire goal of all of this. I know it seems stupid, but that was our problem, the crashing stuff. Yeah, all of this was done because of crashing and instability. Okay, so we should not be able to log in as an alternate character. Yep, I haven't created one. We should be able to register. We're going to register Dingus. He's going to be a warrior. He should come in properly. We've got 2 people in the game. All of our stats are proper. 100, 100, 50, 50, Dingus. And Airy, 70 coins, so we're good there. I should be able to attack this mob, and its life should go down on the other character. It's fine. It disappears properly. Dingus has 10 coins like he's supposed to. Now we have to do this quickly. So let's see. Let's target the first character. Target him. Turn on auto attack. Turn on auto attack. Okay. So if I did that right, 20 coins and 80 coins. Both characters got their loot properly. Let's double check and make sure. 80 coins. Target the first monster. 20 coins. Target the first monster. Attack. Attack. There we go. 90 coins. 30 coins. So there we go. This is what we've been trying to do the entire stupid week, and we've been dealing with the crashing issue. It's actually working properly, as you can see here. So that's our goal. The nice thing is switching over to this method where we're notifying the player when they receive loot, we could technically tell the UI to update in real time now. So for example, there's real loot. If there's been coin loot, for example, we could have it where the UI right here updates, because we can say, hey, UI, update yourself. And it's going to be, okay, I'm going to update. Actually, now that I'm mentioning that, that sounds like it might be fun to do. We have, what? A little bit more time left for the stream. Maybe we'll just do that, just as a fun little thing to put in. So we can close that. We can close that. We don't need our... Okay, so that was in our character. That is going to be in our section that we did not put a comment in. Receive loot. Get character values from server. So now that we receive loot, let's go ahead and just tell our UI to update. So if anyone remembers how to do this, kudos to you, because I'm going to guess at how we did it. So everything should be in the HUD, and then one of our functions in our HUD should be to update the... Oh, wait. Do we have a function to update our player UI? Where's it at? Because that's our stats UI right here. And this gets updated. We have plenty of commands in here, so we could call update coins, for example. So that wouldn't be an issue. But I think this only gets updated on construct, right? Yep. So that's a small problem. And I don't think we have anything inside of our HUD to actually do that. So where's our HUD? I lost my HUD. Here's the HUD. I don't think we ever put anything in place, right? Update character name, health, and mana. Update the target card. Nope. Okay, so cool. Update coins on... What did we call that thing? Ah, crap. What do we call it? Character stats UI. Character stats UI. Because why not? So this is a HUD event that's going to do that. Here's our character stats UI. And then we tell it to update... We spell it properly, coins. There we go. Now we have a HUD event called update coins on character stats UI. Now we go back to our character, and we tell it update. Oh, nope, we got to cast it because for some reason I decided not to use interfaces in this project, and I have to cast for every single thing I do. Update coins on character stats UI. Okay. So that didn't take very long. So if this worked, let me kill the server. When something dies and we get loot, we should automatically have our UI update in real time. No more need to close and open the interface. Okay. I'll be happy if this works first try. I think it will. I think getting rid of these crashing errors and being able to test things a little more efficiently, while it is more work setting things up, I think in the long run, this is going to make the rest of this go a little bit easier. I still don't know where these errors are coming from, by the way. I'll wait for this to finish. This was one of the demo items that comes with the third-person project. I deleted it. It's gone. It's not in there as far as I can tell either. And it's all redirects have been fixed, but now all of a sudden it's like bitching at me because it can't find the engine transient, which I've never even touched. I don't know where it is. I don't know what's in there. but now the entire folder is the entire game. You know, can we make a folder? Wait, it's under engine. It's not even in here. I don't even know what that is. Yeah, and Google's not helping. It's supposed to be a temporary thing, but I deleted all the temporary folders and everything, and that's not helping. So I'm literally at a yeah, because here's our engine folder. This is the actual engine folder that we're building everything out to. Yeah. Make a pure function in a function library for the HUDcast. Yep, I could do that. Yeah, there's lots of ways I could shortcut this. Yeah. If you Google this, you don't find a solid answer. I've had some more errors in here when I still had some socket IO stuff, but I think I've cleaned it all up at this point, so I shouldn't have that issue. It's just a warning, so I'm not really concerned about it. It's warning me about something that doesn't exist. It's just... warnings shouldn't exist. So if you see a warning, you should try to fix it. And it's one of those things where I want to fix it. Okay, so let's see if we did this right. 90 coins. Attack. Okay, so that didn't work right. Who do we blame for this one? Wonder why that didn't work. Or... I kind of know why this didn't work. Well, I think I know why this didn't work. Hold on a second. I have a feeling it's due to replication time. Let's see what happens if we delay one frame. I have a feeling that's what it might be. And it only takes us a second to try. I probably should delay more, but I want to delay one frame just because I like one frame. When we call this one, get character values from server, this goes to the server, grabs... Oh, I'm an idiot. Oh, I bet... Well, I'm an idiot. So this is a latent event. It's an asynchronous operation. It's going to do all this stuff and then wait for the information from the server. And then, when it fires off all of this stuff, which is asking the server for the thing, and then starts waiting, it's going to continue on with everything else. Where'd it go? And it's going to go ahead and do all this stuff. So yeah, this is all kind of pointless. Yeah. So this needs to be in a different spot. This is more than likely needs to come from the... there we go. So this should be in our update. So we kind of have a weird question here. I don't feel right about... Yeah, this is where a proper event dispatcher system would be in place. This is not... I don't think this is the smartest way to do this, but we're going to do it anyways. Yeah. You'd have something like an update section right here when we get the valid values from our... Actually, here's a good question for people who might know this. So here's our return right here. And you can see this is a giant monstrosity of VaRestness. This is what I had to do, unfortunately, but let's ignore that. When we do this right here, I set the player's name, and this is a replicated variable. Does the client know about this change the same frame, or does it take some time to replicate? I would assume it takes some time to replicate because of network traffic. So we should probably not call anything that relies on data immediately. That would be my thought. I could be wrong here. It seems like this would be a case for being even more intelligent. Remember I was saying we should have a notification system? What if our coins was a rep notify? And whenever the coins was updated, then we update. That seems smart to me. Who else thinks that's smart? I think that's smart. Okay, I'm going to agree with you guys. Cool. Everyone thinks it's smart. So we actually have a small issue here. I realize there's a huge problem that someone may be doing something really stupidly here. All things should be notified. I am starting to agree with you, JoviX. I am starting to agree with you. All things should probably be notified. That is probably what we will start doing here shortly when we switch over to the actual real stat system. Anyways, our event graph, where is our code to create the character card? Not the character card, character stats window right here. So this, if someone was stupid enough to actually try to call without making sure we had a valid UI, would cause issues. Where is my stupid? There we go. So we're not going to say who almost did this, but we just tried to call updating on a UI element if the UI element didn't exist. And that was really stupid. Okay. Confident this is going to work. Basically, the 8-shot, what I was mentioning was on our character, we have things set up where we get loot. And once we get the loot, some of that loot could be the coins. All we were trying to do here was if you had a interface up that displayed coins, we wanted to actually update in real time. So that way, because it seems silly that you kill something, you receive 10 coins, but your interface shows the old value. So what we were doing was trying to set it up where it updated itself properly. So the first idea was after we receive the loot, we go ahead and update the coins on the screen. But the issue with that is a asynchronous or latent event where we have to wait for the server to tell us about the change. So we figured, okay, so let's wait for the server to tell us about the change. And that's this part here. Now, when the server tells us about the change, it's actually telling the server, the dedicated Unreal server, about the changes, not the client. So I'm still waiting for the stuff. So then we have to wait for the dedicated server to update the values for me, the person who's playing, so I know about my new coins. And that still could take time. So I was like, well, it would be really nice if we had some sort of an actual real event system in place, so that way when the coins changed, we knew about it and we could do things appropriately. And then JoviX reminded me, because I was being a dum-dum, we do have a system in place for that. Anytime you have a variable that is a network variable that's replicated, so the server and the clients keep them synced up, you have the option of not only doing replicated, you have rep notify, which is basically, hey, this variable's changed, go ahead and do something because the variable changed. And we get our nice little event right here. So we have our event we can sync into. So now anytime the coins are changed, we should be able to tell our HUD to update the coins on the HUD. And it'll only happen when the coins change. So it should be as efficient as possible. That's our thought process here. In reality, we're going to find out. And that's why JoviX was mentioning you should use notification. And it makes sense because in the future, for example, let's say a player's stat changes. Let's say their strength changes and we want something to happen based on that. We can do notify. So I like that. So let's try logging in. Let's see if we did it correctly the first time. If you bind the UI property to a replicated value, you kind of don't need notify. Correct. If you update manually, notify the way. Correct. Now there is a negative. When something is bound on the UI, it is constantly being checked. So that is a performance issue, potentially. I personally do not bind anything because binding, think about it this way. Here's our character's health. It's 50, right? Cool, not a problem. It's still 50. It's still 50. It's still 50. It's still 50. It's still 50, right? We have 50. Every single frame, should I be changing this number from 50 to 50? Should I be checking to see that it is always 50? Or should I only change this number when something happens and the number changes? And then when it changes, I actually notify everybody it changed. That's kind of your difference between binding to something or pushing out the data when it changes. Both of them work. I personally believe in only changing data when you need to change data. Basically pushing it rather than pulling it. Both of them are perfectly valid. With computers as fast as the way they are now, it's probably not even much of an issue. But considering I've been doing this for decades at this point this way, this is just the way I generally tend to do it. Yep, I probably needed this screen up, didn't I? 120, there we go. 120 coins. This will update to 130. There we go. So that's working properly. 8-shot, can you not have it just check on tick after a gate? You could do that, but the tick itself is still going to fire, for example. So you're still doing something. Even if that something is a millionth of a millisecond, you're still doing something. And if you have a chance of not doing something, it may be beneficial in the future in the end run. One advantage also of pushing data rather than pulling is you get to do something when that data changes. If I'm simply pulling, or I'm bound to my player's health value, for example, it's simply going to change when it changes. It's a one-to-one relationship. If I'm pushing, I might want to, for example, do something. So I might also want to, the life changed, and now that it's below 50% health, I want to change the color of the life bar at the same time. So it allows you to, bind things together in a more of a usability approach. So yeah, 8-shot. Anytime there is something, there is a performance hit. I believe Epic has stated in the more recent versions of the engine that unused functions and events like the update and the begin play don't do anything. So if you have an unused tick, I think it won't do anything as well. However, I can't be sure of that. I know for Unity, for example, unused update functions still fire off. I don't know how it works in Unreal for exact reasons. But this is a good way to utilize optimization of your code where if you don't need it, why have it type thing. Because if you always need it later, then you can put it in. But we're good. If you guys noticed, everything worked perfectly properly there. We have characters we can log in. Here's Mr. Dingus. He has 30 coins. He can target a wolf. Mr. Wolfie loses his life. When Mr. Wolfie dies, Dingus is notified he has 40 coins appropriately. So we're good. We actually got everything working. We gave a little bit more of something. We're way behind on progress where I want to be. But so far, everything feels a lot more stable. One side effect of doing this, which is for the good, is we noticed last time we were playing with this project, we had all of our player values stored in the player value struct, which is good. It made it easier on us because we had one thing to reference. However, if we were going to, for example, update the player's health, they took damage, and we needed to replicate that over the network. Sorry about that. We ended up needing to replicate the entire player value structure. So when we only wanted to change one float, we actually ended up sending data for everything else, even if they didn't change. So our workaround was to create the local variable for the current health and then just use that as a temporary vessel or holder for our data. Now that we're not using structs anymore for this because we can't easily transfer data using VaRest with a struct, we have broken everything out into our individual values, which is what I didn't want to do in the first place, but apparently this is what we're going to need to do. Which means now we no longer have to worry about sending too much data during replication. So it's a good side effect. And speaking of which, I need to get rid of this stupid variable. I still have this in use, so I need to figure out where this is. This is... Yeah, okay, so this is... Whoops. I just closed that an accident. Okay. This is the variable we need to get rid of. So I have this in multiple places. We need to, so yeah, this is fixed because we don't want these anymore. So we'll get rid of those. We never even used those in the first place. So we're good there. And then we have 2 places where we're getting. Okay, so we can get rid of that one. Okay, good. So receive loot from player server return. And this is receive loot from server return. Okay, that was the old function when we were using the old system. Now we should be able to get rid of our player values. There we go. I was trying to clean that up eventually. Yeah, because everything should now be inside of its own function, returns, and completes. Good. So that helps. That's good. I'm happy. I'm happy. I wish we could have gotten some more things done in terms of the actual project. But if we think of this as an unintentional milestone that we had to hit, and we decided to clean it up to make it more stable for presenting to our boss, we could spin this into something we did on purpose. We'll just say we had to hit our milestone, which was what we just accomplished, and it needed to be cleaned up. So we'll say that was what we actually have been doing for the last week, and we'll consider this a win. But technically, internally, I know I'm behind of where I wanted to actually be, but I'm happy. We are nearing the end of the stream. That's why I'm kind of winding down right now. We're actually going to hit a legitimate, valid 2-hour stream for once, which I've been trying to do. I appreciate everyone hanging out. I'm glad everyone had questions and comments. Hopefully, the 2 people that did have some other questions, I helped them out as best as I could. If you still have problems, feel free to ask during chat, during the streams. Feel free to leave comments on YouTube as best as you can. I'll be more than happy to try to help out as best as I can. I do have limitations, obviously, because I'm still learning what I'm doing, plus math, animation, art. Oh, particles, that's right. Hey, we were going to try to do fire on someone's hands, weren't we? Okay, let's close down this project and see if we can quickly do that. I have a feeling I just completely ruined my chance of having a 2-hour stream by saying that. Yeah, let's see if we can do that. I remember someone asked about fire on someone's hands. In theory, it shouldn't be too hard. Hello. I'm just going to call you Sud because I probably could not pronounce the rest of it. Tudis, which question did you ask? Oh, here we go. Sorry. Could you show how to properly spawn an actor and replicate it? Also, how to rotate it towards the player. In the end, it will be like putting a wall as a shield. Okay. Replication. Okay, so if we're talking about network replication, spawning something, anything, is just spawned normally. You don't spawn it specially. What matters is where you spawn it. If the server spawns it, then everybody gets a copy of it. If the client spawns it, then it's considered local and only the client can see it. So that's what matters in terms of spawning and replicating. For example, I want a firework to go off because I leveled up. I want some sort of a special particle effect to go off. That's something you could spawn on the client. So my character could say spawn this effect when he levels up. Because everyone else doesn't need to see he leveled up, and it saves bandwidth, and it saves... it's not necessary. However, I throw a grenade on the ground. When I tell it to throw a grenade on the ground, I basically would tell the server, hey, I threw this grenade. And then the server would spawn the grenade, and then the server would project that or do whatever physics you want to make it move. And now that it's on the server, it's going to move and everybody's going to see it. So that's how you need to think about when you're spawning stuff for replication. Rotating towards the player, you just use the look at node. It's really super simple. You have the look at rotation node, and you say from one location to the other. I've done a video on the look at rotation, but it's super simple. Again, you just you set the rotation, you add the rotation, you do whatever you need to do the rotation based on the look at rotation node. That's the easiest way of doing it. A good example with blueprints. If you go back a bunch of videos, a good 3 months or so, I had some videos that tried to explain this. let me see about doing fire, and then let me see if I can do a basic multiplayer. Kind of a really simple one. Let me see if I can figure out the fire stuff first. I'm pretty sure we have a engine content example of a particle fire. So let's see if we can find that one. Yeah, there's a particle fire. So let's throw this, let's see. Let's do fire hands. And then let's find our, that's our C++ classes. We didn't want that. There we go. And then we'll go back up here to fire hands. And we'll put it in here. We'll copy it over here. Good. We'll get rid of our particle system. Let's grab our third person blueprint. Let's move him over to fire hands. There we go. And our new level, default. And this will be our fire character. And this will be our fire particle. Grab our player, slap him into our world. We're going to edit our fire character. I'm doing this the cheesy way. Grab our mesh, find our mesh, grab our mesh. Here's our mannequin, grab our mannequin, go to our skeleton, and then let's find a hand. Here we go, hand. We already have a bone. I don't know if, can you attach to a bone? Or do you have to attach to a socket? I guess we'll find out. So let's see, let's find begin play. And let's see, spawn emitter, okay. Attached, so that'll work, yeah, and there's the attached point. So let's see if we can, let's see, hand L, no. Index, no. None of those really work. Let's go with hand _ L, let's see if that works. No adjustments, keep it relative. I don't know. Let's find out what happens. Fire particle. Let's see what happens when we do this, shall we? I don't have my character spawning in the world, so that would probably be smart. So let's actually spawn the correct character into our world, shall we? Game mode. Let's see, fire game mode. Make a new map. So file save. Find the fire game mode. Here we go. Fire map. Okay. Now, after all that, we have our basic map where we can test stuff. Turn our fire game mode on. Adjust our fire game mode to use our fire player. Fire character. There we go. Okay. So now our game mode should fire out our fire player. Let's find out. Okay. So we do have our fire character. Okay. So we have our fire character. I am not seeing a particle. So that's not a good thing. So it may not be. Let's try something else. Let's just try spawning in our fire emitter to make sure it works first before we do anything. And just put it a little bit off the ground. There we go. Okay, well, our fire particle definitely works when it's there. So that shouldn't be an issue then. So this one should work. I'm just wondering if it is attaching properly. Because we are spawning it to ourselves. Do I have to attach it to myself? Oh, I wonder if that was it. Okay, yeah, we actually needed to give it a component to attach to. Probably would have been smarter. So let's give it to our mesh. Okay, so there is the basics of doing a fire effect attached to something. Right there. You have spawn emitter. Here's your fire emitter. And then you attach it to our mesh, for example. And then this is a bone or a socket that we're going to attach it to. So it's my hand, for example. And then there's a fiery hand. Now there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of options in the particles that I don't know how half of them work. But there are definitely some things in here. For example, you can change the size. So, you'd want something like the size. you'd want to make the particle look good. So let's just start with that. You want the particle to look good. The other one is you have the location is what I want to call it, but I don't think that's the right name for it. Here, let me show you this. So like see how it's on the hand, but see how it's kind of staying behind as I move? You can basically make it emitter emission direction. Okay, so let's see if we can find. Okay, so Jovix is saying direction. Emitter, emission. I don't see a direction because it doesn't like me. Yeah, I'm trying to get it where it will lock it. It's in local space, not world space. That's what I'm trying to remember, and I can't literally remember the name of it. But there is something that allows you to put it in world space. So basically when the player moves, it doesn't do it in world space. It does it in local space. Orientation? I don't think it's orientation. Oh, maybe. Because there's so many different emitters in here. Oh. Anyways, there is an option in here. This required this stuff doesn't matter. This is all what you need to figure out when you're doing the particle to make the particle do what you want. What matters is you can use the spawn emitter node, you can attach it to your mesh, and you can attach it to a specific bone or socket. And once it's done, then you have a fire fist. And because it's a particle and you spawn it, you have the ability to turn it on and off. So this is the most important part. Yeah, and it is in. Oh, see what I hate half-assing an answer. For particle local. Let's see, follow character. I'm trying to remember. Let's see. Here we go. This might be it. You can limit particles to certain bones as well. That's kind of cool. Yeah, Sud, feel free to ask a question at any point in time. Yeah, there's either myself and there's other people as well who might be able to help you. It is literally a it's a check mark or something that you check in order to give us the effect that we want. It is literally something stupidly simple. It's just remembering what it is. I'm on the other screen, by the way, looking at particle outline. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Particles. Let's see. Stick to player. Attaching particle to actor. Yeah, that doesn't help me in terms of yeah, local space. Okay. Pretty sure it's in here somewhere. Oh, I wonder if I can just type stuff. Let's see. Let's see if the word local comes. Aha! There we go. That's what I was trying to find. Like I said, it was literally one check mark. Okay. It's under required, it's under emitter, and it's called use local space. That basically tells the particle to always work in local space. we also have a stupid where's the stupid smoke? I can't figure out how to make it go away. Because I can't see. Okay, there we go. I want the smoke to go away. So there we go. That's what I was trying to do. Okay. So there we go. So now we have a fire effect on the hand. Obviously, it needs to be better. It should be better. This is using a 2D sub UV setup. Yeah, 8-shot, you found it as well at the same time. But that's what you're looking for. You want something that's like a local space particle, and you want it where it's looks like what you want, obviously, I would hope. And then you want it in local space would probably be the smarter way of doing it. And then you get a fiery hand. See? Oh, fire hand. Okay, cool. Let's see. So, Sud's got a question. In theory, we are failing miserably at everything we planned on doing. Let me see if I can whip out a simple little networky thingy. Don't I have a learn networking? I do have a learn networking. There we go. I have a learn networking one. This is what we were using to learn networking. Too many blueprint classes, no clue on multiplayer setup. Yep, welcome to the welcome to everyone else. Multiplayer is very, 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 very complicated. If you haven't started with multiplayer at all, I would recommend going through the Unreal Engine official tools. I would also recommend going here, which I can't find anymore. Here we go. I'm trying to find a link to it. I hope it works. Yeah, we're good. Okay, cool. So I'd recommend going here, reading Cedric's basic guide on multiplayer. This one is a good basic understanding of how multiplayer works in Unreal Engine. I would recommend starting with that. After that, it's a lot of basic trial and error. That's what we're going through. Some of my older stuff dealing with networking works. There's articles of replication, yeah, on the official one. What Tudis is trying to ask is something that we're working on right here. So this was actually something that I did a while back for understanding replication and stuff like that. So you can see here, multiplayer and spawning. This is where we first originally started trying to learn multiplayer. And there is lots of weird stuff in here. Okay, so, but he wanted a basic, well, the guide helps a lot. The guide does help a lot. It's just the problem is you have to understand the basics of Unreal Engine to go along with the guide. That's kind of one of the things. So here's the colors map. I think we have this set up for a good example setup. Okay, and then we have our character that has all of our information? Yeah, here we go. Okay, here is an example map that I set up in order to try to learn things, to learn replication and stuff like that. Okay, so we have here. So you'll see as I do this, we have different stuff going on. I have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5, and then a 6, and then a 7. We have some buttons I'm going to push here. Okay, so here's our basic example. This example is running with a dedicated server. What that means is there are 4 characters and 4 clients. None of these clients are the server, and that's super important to understand. There is a server hiding behind everything that has every single one of these things on it. The server has this character, this character, this character, and this character. It has its own versions of it. This client has its own versions. This client has its own versions, etc., etc. Each client has their own versions of each one of these. And that's super important to know, because if I, as the client, changed my color locally right here, No one else knows about it because this version of this character on this client changed itself. And no one else has any idea about it because, let's see, let's make this guy jump up and down. Okay, so you'll see over here, it's this guy over there. This version of this player right here is completely different than this version because each of these clients have their own version. So that's important to understand. So if I hit the 1 key right now, you'll notice nothing happened. If we look at our code, my code is basically a multicast. That is saying, hey, execute on the server and change the color to everybody. Oops, sorry. Number 1 is what I meant. Let's try this again. Number 1 was my server call. That's what I meant to say. It's saying, hey, server, change the color of this character. Change the body color. Change this parameter on this material. The server will change itself and change its color. But since we don't see a server, so that I actually need to switch to this, which I kind of didn't want to do immediately, but it's fine. Okay, so we're going to see something here. If I hit 1, you'll notice its color changed. If I hit 1, its color changed. I hit 1, its color changed. I go over here and I hit 1, and what do you know? Its color changed. I hit 1 over here on the client, but it didn't change here. It changed over here. I hit 1 here. Again, the clients didn't change their color. Only this machine over here changed its color. And you might be wondering why. Well, that's because this is technically the server. This is a listen server, which means you actually have a visual representation of the server. It's also client 1. That is super important to understand. Even though this technically says client 1, client 2, client 3, this is technically a server and a client, which means this right here will respond to client calls and server calls. The code is saying, hey, when I push the 1 button, no matter who I am or where I am, we're going to run this code on the server. We're going to run this code right here. This code is going to grab the server version of this character and tell it to change its color. These are concepts that are so annoying to understand. They take a little while to understand. But if you do understand them, it makes things easier. Let me change this to 2 and we'll hit play. So now, again, we're back here we have 2 characters this time. Server, his client, his little character, and his little character. Client, his character, and his character. When I'm on this guy over here, so you can see him jumping, and I hit the 1 button, what happens is this guy locally says, hey, I want to run this code on the server version of me. Go ahead and run this code on the server version. The server goes, okay, here's that version of you who just called that command. I'm going to go ahead and run it on you. And that code is saying, go ahead and change the color locally, is what it's saying. So that's why, and this is what some people have issues with. This is one reason why it's kind of confusing when you start off. By default, Unreal is set up to run as a listen server setup, which means if you're sitting here, for example, I'm going to hit the 1 key. My color changed. Okay, but why didn't it change over here? I push the button. Why didn't it change over here? And you get super confused on why the color's not changing the same between 2 different things. It's because technically you're telling the server to do it. And because you're running in the client server setup here, you're actually seeing the server do it when you shouldn't, because it's supposed to be invisible. It runs the code, but it doesn't send it back to the results of the client. That is kind of correct. It's basically running this code and doing literally exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying, hey, run this code on the server only. And that's it. This code doesn't change anything anywhere else. It only changes it locally and changes the color. That's why we have this version right here, which is our multicast version. So if we run the multicast version and we hit 2, you'll notice it changes on both machines. But you're going to notice something funny here. I'm going to go over to my client and hit 2. And you'll notice It only changed on the client and not the server. The issue here is this is not being run on the server. This is being run on the client, and then we're trying to say to multicast it. That is the problem. And this is where it's super duper confusing. And I'm not going to say it's not super duper confusing. It just is super duper confusing. What's going on here is this code says the target is the character. We're going to replicate it to all if server. And if we look at right here where it says this, it says replicate this event from the server to everyone else. Server executes this event locally. Only call this from the server. When we hit the 2 button on the client, we're calling this code. This code runs on the client. This code does not run on the server. That's why we have an issue there. That's why people get confused where they go, oh, okay, I hit 2. Oh, look, it worked fine. Then the client pushes the button and goes, it didn't run on the client. You have to remember that this stupid little window in this corner is both a client and a server. And it causes 90% of the problems when you're learning networking and you can't understand why it works on one machine and another, and not another. If we switch this over to the dedicated server and we run it, and I hit the 2 button, you'll notice we get the result we expect. They both only change their color. We don't get anything different than what we expected. So that's super important to remember. A listen server is both a client and a server and will cause you nothing but headaches. Okay, so a simple example of spawning an actor blueprint would be very nice. Yep, I will get to that here shortly. Let's just finish up with this basic stuff. So the keys here is run stuff on the server, and the server will let everyone else know about the changes if it's appropriate. Running it on the client will only change it on the client, even if you say multicast, because multicast has to be run on the server. So the next question is, well, how the hell do we do that? Well, it's really stupid, but if we push our 3 key, the 3 key goes run a server event that runs on the server. And then that server event calls the multicast event, which then changes the color to everybody. So if we go back to here and we hit the 3 key, and we actually make it where you can see, you'll notice the color changed for both people. Because even though we are calling this event, again, right here, the same thing, the multicast event, which didn't work before, we are telling it to run the multicast event on the server. So now when it correctly runs this, the server calls this code, and the server tells everybody else through the multicast to run this code locally. So that's why everybody changes when you do that. These other ones right here, run on owning client. This one's super annoying. We're going to skip that one. The replication is one of the biggest things. So that's what our 6 and our 7 are right here, our replication. So if we hit play, for example, and we hit 6, and we go over here, you'll notice it doesn't really work properly. Because all we're doing is calling this right here on the client. Again, this is a variable right here called body color that's set to replication notify. It's a replicated variable. Everybody should know about it. It's a replicated variable. Why doesn't everybody know about it when I change it? Because we ran it on the client. You have to do everything on the server or it just will not work properly to let everybody else know. So we hit the 6 button. My client says, hey, we're going to change our color and we're going to do a notification, a rep notify. And everybody else is like, I have no idea what you're doing. You're off on your own, all by yourself. We know nothing about this. So again, we have to make sure it's run on the server. And what we do is, with the 7 button here, I'm doing the same thing, except I'm calling it the set notify on the server. You'll notice this event is on the server. So my client, my local dude, goes, hey, I'm going to run this code. This code is run on the server, and it sets the notify on the server. So now if we hit the 7 button, and let's make sure we can see each other this time, you'll notice the color changed properly. Because my client said, hey, server, call this code on the server. And the server said, yeah, we're going to go ahead and set this variable on the server. And since it's a replicated variable, everyone else is going to be notified about the change. So those are the key, real important things in regards to replication and RPC, which is our server calls, remote procedure calls and stuff. If you don't call it on the server, chances are you're not going to get the right result. That's probably the simplest way of thinking about it. And then wrapping your head around the fact that you have multiple versions of the same stupid thing, depending on if you're the client or the server, is the other thing. So let's see about spawning the actor. That is what was asked. So let's make a new key. We'll call it the 8 key because that's the next one. And we'll do a spawn actor. And what do we want to spawn? Oh, I don't know. Do we have anything we can spawn? Do we have like a box or a ball or... Okay, well, I guess we're going to make something to spawn. Blueprint. We're going to call this blueprint spawnable because that's the name I'm going to call it. And we'll just simply make this a sphere. There we go. Make it super simple. And we're going to call this a spawnable. And we're going to spawn it at nothing. We're going to make this really simple. So I'm over here. If I hit the 8 key, you're going to see my little Q sphere popped up because that's the location I told to spawn. If we go over here, you'll notice nothing. We have nothing. See how you can see it over here, but there's nothing there? Because this is a client. This client said, hey, spawn this item, and it spawned the item. But because the server knows nothing about the item, no one else knows about the item. Now, if we change this to do a run on server, for example, so we'll create a custom event. We'll call this spawn on server. We'll tell it to spawn on server. We'll hook it up to here. So now this code will be spawned on the server, or called on the server. And then we push the 8 button, we tell it to spawn on server. We'll go ahead and save it and run it. And then we'll go, let's see, it's going to be over here. So we'll move our characters over to here. And we'll go back to our first client and we'll hit the spawn button. And did I hit the spawn button? Well, I know I hit the spawn button. Obviously, I failed at something that should have worked. Spawn on server, run on server. Yeah, should have worked. Let's double test this to see if I broke something. Yeah, it spawns over there next to the other guy. Okay, so who wants to guess at what I broke here? 8 locally, call spawn on server. This should call spawn on server locally. It should spawn in the BP spawner. Yeah. Okay. Oh. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. I didn't replicate it. Yeah. That was the next thing. I keep forgetting we're running dedicated server here. So, if I run this off of a dedicated server, this is where the confusion stuff will come in. This is where, like I said, I hate the fact that listen server is the default. You'll notice that when I told to spawn on server on this one, it did spawn for this player. But you'll notice this player over here doesn't see it. And this player is now super confused on why he doesn't see it. That's because, again, we're running a listen server. That's why if you can run it on a dedicated server, at least kind of eliminates issues. So yeah, like Tudis was mentioning, we did spawn this on the server. So that's cool. The server knows about it. However, because this isn't just a generic thing I created, it's an actual actor, it's not set to replicate. This is what tells it to replicate to everybody else. So now if we run this and we hit the 8 key, now you'll see it spawned on both machines. And that means that what this means now is, we'll hit play. Right now we have 3 versions of every character. So keep that in mind. This client knows about everything. This client knows about everything. And then this dedicated server that we can't see knows about everything. I hit the button. The dedicated server knows about that sphere. And then it replicates that information to this server. So now it has a copy of the sphere. And then now this one has a copy of that sphere. Sphere, whatever we're going to call it. That's your basics. And it's all about whether or not you want something spawned locally or on the server. And yes, replication needs to be turned on. Do you need to use authority at some point in order to replicate? If we mean the has authority, or the switch has authority, or even the stupid is dedicated node, These are safety checks, is what this is. This is a safety check. You don't need these unless you need something specifically run on one or the other or both. So for example, this code right here, I'm running it on one of my characters. This right here says run this code on the server, right? We're running this on the server. This is not needed. This is not needed, and this, well, probably isn't needed, but let's just ignore this for now. These aren't needed. This right here, and with run on server, guarantees that anything after this will only ever be run on the server, because we're starting off our function with run on server. So we never need to check. Where you might want to check is if you want to make it where only the server version of something or only the client version could do something. So for example, here's our 8 and here's our remote. We have something like this. This is saying, hey, the 8 key was pushed. I want to make sure only the remote, so not the server, can actually call this function. Because, for example, this is really, technically, we would move this here. Let's copy this. I mean, this is going to be ridiculous, but maybe it'll suit an example purpose. Let me put this up here. There we go. Boop, like that. There we go. So this code right here basically is a complete loop, if you want to think about it this way. This code is going to say, hey, the 8 button was pushed. Do we have authority? Are we the server? If so, let's go ahead and spawn something because we're the server. If we're not the server, well, we need to go ahead and spawn this on the server. So we'll call the spawn on server code. A similar example, adding more options for lobby hosts. That I have no information on. Unreal, there's an official Unreal Engine series on multiplayer lobby. You might want to watch that. I've done no lobby stuff, but it should be the same basics. Your question regarding multicast. Multicast is not needed if you're spawning something on the server and you want it to replicate, because the replication takes care of that. If you want it spawned on everybody locally and not the same thing technically, then you could do a multicast, if that makes sense. So let's go back to this code right here, and let's turn this code into a multicast event right here. And we'll check something. Well, actually, let's turn this back to a server. And we'll check something out here. So we need to run it in here. Darn it. Yeah, I guess that'll work. We'll just have to watch this stuff over here. That's what we'll have to watch. We'll hit 8. Here's our spawnable. You can see we have a spawnable right here. If we hit 8, you'll see we have another spawnable. Our server knows about 2 spawnables because technically I keep hitting the 8 key and we keep getting spawnables. Not a problem. If we turn this into a multicast, and see, this is gonna be hard to show. Let's see if I run it with one. I'm trying to think of the easiest way to show this. And technically, this won't even run properly because of we don't have a run on server event. Oh, I gotta hook this up for run on server. Custom event run multi. Because if I was to just change this over to run on multicast, it's gonna be an issue. This one is run on server, and this one's run multicast on server. There we go. And then this one should call spawn on server because why not? And that calls the replicated version. This should be our multicast. There we go. And that should be a server. Okay. So that should call it over all those other versions. That's what I was trying to do. Oops. We need to go back to our main screen. Hit 8. Okay. So before, when we ran this code with just the server version of it, we only get one version of our spawnable because our server is spawning it and it replicates. When we run it with the multicast version and we hit spawn, you'll notice we end up with 2 spawnables because we're basically having the servers and the clients replicate this information and it's spawning in multiples. And if we were running in one player mode where selected viewport like this, and then we start spawning stuff up, you'll start seeing our client has 2 versions of this, even though we only told it to do 1. That's because we have it being fired off multiple times. And what you'll find out, though, is these aren't the same things. You'll find that the server actually has different versions than the client, because the client spawned in its own locally rather than on the server. Yeah. So multicast, for the most part, you don't really... For spawning, you probably don't want multicast. You want the replication and spawn on the server. Let's see. If you want to rotate, and you do the rotation on the server, so basically it won't rotate on the client. No, if you do the rotation on the server, it should rotate fine, assuming you're using a character movement. The character movement replicates automatically by default. Where's the stupid... Oh, where's it at? Here we go. You have the replicate movement function checkbox on a character by default. So a character out of the box comes with a good movement replication system built in. That's why you'll notice we aren't doing anything in here. And oops, that's only 1 client, so that's not going to help. Let's do 2 clients and not standalone. Dang it. I meant to do editor window. There we go. That's why you can see them moving without having to do anything. So yeah, replicate movement is what you want. But I believe replicate movement only works for the character movement. I want to say replicate movement only works if you have a character. Because like our spawnable... Oh, no, our spawnable does have replicate movement, so maybe. Okay, so let's say we spawn... So you're having an issue with rotation. So let's see if we can figure this one out. So we have this set to replicate. We have our little sphere set to replicate. Let's change our sphere into a cube so we can actually see it rotating. And we'll go ahead and we will do... we'll set it to rotate on tick. And let's see if this works properly. Let's try something here for a second. Let me switch this back to the proper spawning. Let me move him up 50 so we can actually see it this time. So let's see, spawn on server. Okay, so this should be back to spawning properly. Okay, so let's run this again. Let's hit 8. There we go. So it's rotating, and you can see it rotating properly because it's set to replicate. So your rotation should work. My guess would be that you were rotating something that you spawned incorrectly. It was a case of one of those things where you spawned it on the client only, and then, of course, the rotation on the client isn't going to affect the server rotation. But I'm calling this code on the server because this item's on the server, and then it's doing the rotation. If I called this code on the client, for example, it would fail to update for everybody else. But this spawnable is only spawned on the server. That's our code right here. So, like, for example, if we did... let's see. Let me switch this over to spawn projectile like this. We're just going to have this spawn locally, for example. And we hit A. You'll see it rotates, but we don't see anything on this one because it's spawned locally. Eldridge, yes, everything is recorded and should show up on the stream later. And yes, Tudis, there's a very good chance because, like I said, I did look through your code. The majority of the issues I found with the code you sent me was because you basically spawned in duplicate weapons for everything, and then your character was using the local version of the weapon whenever it was trying to do something, and then the server had no idea about the local version because you never told it, and it was a cascading error. Multicast, I have not used multicasting in any of the stuff I've done. I know the reasoning for it. I just haven't had to use it yet. So that's something to keep in mind. Replication pretty much avoids needing multicast. You'd use replication in the case where you needed something. You'd use multicast in the case where you weren't using replication and you wanted everybody to know about stuff. That's the best way of probably putting that one into place. But if it's something that is replicating, so an actor or movement or something like that, or even a variable, you probably don't need multicast involved in it at all. The keys are spawn crap on the server, replicate it if it needs to replicate, so if everybody needs to know about it, and make sure when you do anything, you do it on the server so that way everybody else can be notified about it if it replicates. That's probably the most important stuff to know. And then to keep in mind that there are multiple versions of everything in the game. That one took me a while to understand. But once I fully understood that, then you can just step back and think about it. You know, here is my guy in the world, right here, on this computer, on this game client. This guy right here is over here on this computer. They are two different things. They can have two different sets of variables, and they could be technically in two different places if you don't have movement replicated. If this client right here told this character right here on his computer that he's now purple, then he's going to be purple on his computer. But this guy over here has no idea about it at all because he's completely different. It's not the same guy. We see them moving and we think they're the same, but the only reason they're moving is because the replication. Every time we move, that data is being sent between the clients and the servers, and everybody's updating their local version of it. So when you want to make changes to this guy and this guy, you tell the server to grab the server version of that dude, make the change, and tell everyone else to change it. Yep, and that's it. That'll probably finish up with our stream. Yeah, again, Eldred, everything is recorded. Hopefully I helped out with some basics. Sud asked, what's the difference between dedicated server and no dedicated server? So I'll finish up that one, because I did see you say that, but I did forget to answer that one. The dedicated server is basically a headless client. Oh, sorry. The dedicated server is basically a headless version, or no screen. We have no rendering. We have no rendering. It's a non-rendered version of our game. And the dedicated server is intended to be used as a server. The listen server is basically the same thing, except it has the front end. It has a rendering pipeline hooked up to it. So technically, when we run this as a listen server, which is our default, we have a client over here, so my little dude all by himself. We have a client over here, and this client over here, this actual thing that's running, is the server at the same time. So this guy over here will respond to both client and server calls because he is both. That's the biggest difference. When we run it in dedicated mode, this client is a client, this client is a client, and our server is often running in the background somewhere. And it has its own copy of everything, and it's all completely separate than this stuff. When we're running again in listen, this is where the confusion kind of comes in. Our client and our server here have the same stuff. So we technically have this little guy right here is the same on the client and the server for this machine. So when we change it on the client, it'll technically change it on the server because it's stupid. And it's misleading because if we do a client call on this one, so for example, the client call right here, the client version changes, which we see, but we think to ourselves, oh, I'm the server, so the server must have changed, when technically the server didn't change because the server had no clue what we just did. That's why when we run the to button, the server actually changes it. Dedicated server is a third-party server, and a non-dedicated server is host-based server. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Your older classic games, for example, I mean, a listen server is your classic, everybody connects to me and I control everything. And a dedicated server is, I'm going to connect to World of Warcraft and they're going to control everything for me. That type of stuff. So yeah, that's your basics. In terms of networking and replication and all of that fun stuff in Unreal, the biggest difference is you have to keep in mind your stupid listen server is your server and client at the same time. And it is so friggin' annoying when you're trying to debug stuff and you can't figure out why it broke. That's just, keep that in mind. If you're totally confused why, hey, I ran this command and I'm the server and it changed and it didn't change for everybody else, I don't understand. That's when you go, oh yeah, I'm a listen server and I called that command on the client and Unreal tricked me because it actually changed it on the client and I didn't change it on the server and I feel stupid for doing this. And that's a conversation I had with myself for about 2 weeks in a row as I was trying to figure this out, because I kept doing that. Okay, so my plan to fail at 2 hours proceeded to fail, but we got a bunch of good stuff. I'm glad I kept this one around because this one actually helps out a bit. And for anybody who's still listening, paying attention, trying to understand networking, don't understand networking, literally do not ever feel bad about it. This map right here and this literally basic understanding of how the networking replication works took us about a month of working together on the live stream in January before I finally got the basics understood. It's not an easy subject. Don't feel bad about not understanding it. Just keep at it. That's going to wrap up the stream for today. I appreciate everyone hanging out. I appreciate everyone conversating. Hopefully everyone who had some questions got their questions answered. We're going to wrap up for the day. Next stream will be on Monday. That will be roughly 10 o'clock Pacific, which is 2 hours and 30 minutes or so before now, because we streamed for almost 2 hours and 40 minutes today. You can catch the video on YouTube, Beam, and Twitch. So for anyone who asked, this will show up on Twitch and Beam relatively quickly. It takes about 3 hours before YouTube processes it, and then I put on a little bit of words, and then it'll show up for the archive so people can watch it again. I can be I can be contacted on YouTube or Twitter. My email address and the blueprint list that I use for my videos is on the YouTube channel in the About section if you need it. Other than that, hopefully everyone has a good rest of their weekend. I have to figure out 2 more videos for Saturday and Sunday still. I'm having a lot of fun figuring those out. And then I plan on enjoying my weekend as far away from this networking project as possible. Now that I've actually said that, more than likely I will continue working on it so I can clean up a few things and I'm going to have some fun. Everyone else have a fun rest of their day. I will see you guys again later. The stream will go quiet for about 30 seconds just so I don't disappear into the future, blah, blah, blah. Everyone have a good rest of their day.